Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Hoffer of Megan Hoffer Photography and Lancaster Photography School. And we are here today to talk about how to get hired as a newer photographer. And we're very excited to have Scott with SMJ and Purpose and Process here to talk with us and talk a lot about his perspectives and to chat a lot about how to get hired. Now, we kind of decided before we started the chat that this topic is enormous as far as getting hired in general. So we're going to break it down as far as, and we're going to really pinpoint one specific topic today, and that's getting hired to second shoot for weddings. We kind of decided that that was the biggest problem that we were seeing with our Facebook groups. I have PA area photographers, and Scott has Purpose and Process. Is that right, Scott? Am I saying it?
Yep.
It's Purpose and Process for his Facebook group. Both really active and awesome groups. Good ones to join if you're not already a member. But we see a lot of comments about either wanting to second shoot or needing a second shooter. So we're just going to dive in to that entire topic today. So without further ado, let's hear from Scott and hear everything about where you're coming from and see your face here too.
All right. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I actually was a school teacher for 10 years before I left to do photography full time. So like many of you who are working a regular day job and trying to find opportunities to second shoot and all of that, like that was my main thing for a very, very long time. And over all of the years now, I have second shot about 350 weddings, somewhere in that ballpark. So I'd like to think I know a decent bit about getting hired and getting yourself out there. So hopefully today we can give you some little tips and tricks for that, because I know Megan and I have definitely noticed there's some people who are doing it really well, and there are other people who are doing it really wrong, and they're not sure why. And hopefully we can bring some of that to light here today. One thing before we get started with any tips and tricks, this goes for getting hired for anything, period. And that is that friendly, consistent, hard workers will always beat out rude and lazy talent. I just want to be very, very clear about that. So for like me, if I see potential in somebody and you have good word of mouth, good references, anything like that, you are going to get opportunities. Now, even if you are super talented, but you are not really following what I'm asking you to do, or you don't quite deliver in some ways there, you're not going to get hired again. And also, the one thing I want to stress is that, especially in the photography community, we are not very large, even though I know it might seem that way at times. When you burn a bridge with one person, it's really like burning multiple bridges.
Absolutely.
But also when you build a bridge with one person, it builds multiple bridges. So just kind of keep that whole perspective in mind. And we'll talk about networking a little bit later too. But really just try to keep in mind that, yeah, somebody might be crazy talented, but if they're a jerk or they're not following directions or doing certain things, you're not going to go anywhere. So that forgoes everything, no matter what you're trying to get hired for there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Really good point, Scott. Thanks for bringing that up just right from the very beginning. It's so important to have a positive attitude. And we're talking about wedding days here. So it's someone's best day ever. And if you're not going to come with a positive attitude and a loving, kind heart, on someone's wedding day, it might not be the best fit job for you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I guess we'll start with kind of where all of you are trying to get started with, which is by posting in Facebook groups and seeing, replying to comments and posts and all that, looking for second photographers. This method can work, but I feel like there's a few very specific things you have to do right in order for it to work for you. So number one, and this is where I see this is the biggest issue, is you must read everything before you respond. Read every part of the post before you make your response. I know so many of us, we see the date, we see the venue, the pay. It's like, oh, as fast as you can go, you're typing your website address in there or whatever it is. And you're just like, cool, hit enter. But if you would look down the post, you would probably see some really important details in there that might exclude you. And we have to realize that You cannot make personal exceptions for yourself if there are specific guidelines in there that you do not meet. And I feel like this is something that's very difficult for some people to kind of understand and swallow. And it's just like, oh, like, for example, if I see a post from a very light and airy photographer who is looking for somebody who shoots wide open and they want this lots of details and all of that, I am not going to be replying to that post because that is not a good fit based upon what I normally do. Even if I might know that person, even if I think I could probably do a good job on that, they are not looking for that. So therefore, I should not be responding to that post. So
And
if you,
conversely, for me, as a
Mhm.
light and airy, or, I hate that term, light and airy, but as a clean and classic photographer, if I see a post from someone like Scott, who's heavy on flash and lots of contrast, dark backgrounds, and those types of things, I know that I'm not going to be a good fit for that job either. So that's not something that I'm going to even respond to because I'm not a good fit.
Yeah, 100%. And like if they say like, you need 2 full frame cameras, some prime lenses, if they're being very specific with that, you can't just say, well, I have this instead. I know that you have good intentions and you just want to find work, but honestly, as someone who is looking to hire seconds, when I see somebody comment with that, it's an immediate disqualification,
Mhm.
immediate, because it tells me that you are trying to get around the guidelines and the qualifications of what I'm looking for. And therefore, I'm just not going to consider you as even an option.
And
And
it
I know that
also
might be
shows that
frustrating, but
Yeah, and it also shows that you're not following directions. And if you
yeah.
can't follow the simple directions in the post, how am I going to be able to rely on you to follow directions on a wedding day when I really need somebody who can take direction and run with it and work on your own too? So, big time.
Exactly. So make sure you include all the information that's requested in the post as well. Now, most people just ask for a website. Some people ask for email or different things like that. And so whatever they ask for, make sure you include it. I can't tell you how many times I see posts out there where, people say include your email address and your website. And what do most people do? They include just their website. Well, guess what? That photographer is not going to go and hunt down your email address or message you to find that out. The big thing is that with working professionals that are full-time or shooting a lot of weddings, we don't have the time to track all of this down. You have to make it easy for us to access everything we need to make a decision about whether or not we want to hire you. So if you are not giving us all the information we need, again, it's an immediate disqualification because we have to do extra work. And we should not have to do extra work if we are going to end up paying you in the end there. So,
I want to make a little side note here too. Just in Facebook groups in general, they're changing the guidelines or whatever you want to call it, the algorithm or whatever for specific to groups. When you comment with just a website, when it's just a link in any post, at least for my group, it's starting to kick them out as it needs to be approved by admin, which I didn't realize at first. And I
hmm,
rarely go into the portion, like once a week, I'll check the section of the Facebook group where it says, posts need approval because I don't have a ton of like a ton of things that kick back on our Facebook group. So I realized that there were all these posts that were just websites replying to somebody's request for a second shooter that needed my approval. So make sure that when you make your post, don't just drop a link or it might kick back and your post might not get seen until next week when I check that. So, that's sorry, but I don't have all day to, manage the Facebook post to check every single post that's in that section that doesn't even tell me is there. So, write something along with the link just to make sure it doesn't get kicked out as spam.
interesting. I had no idea about that. So thank you for sharing that there. And last but not least with Facebook is do not message the poster unless they specifically request it. I cannot tell you enough. Literally, one of my best friends who I love to work with They messaged me. I had do not message me on that post. And I literally wrote back and said, I really, really wish you wouldn't have done that because I would have hired you in a minute. And they're like, you're joking, right? I said, no, I'm not. And they were like so offended. And I said, you don't understand. I just got blown up with 5 messages from all these people who are trying to get this job. And every single one of them is now on my ban list.
Yep. Yeah. We
Like
don't have time
you
for that.
can, no, we don't have time for this. Most of the time I post something and then I'm off to go do something else. And you're blowing up my phone from either spending time with my family or getting effective work done. And if you're doing
Absolutely.
that, you're immediately on the ban list, just like that there.
Yep.
So
And
now, if they
Samantha's
ask
over
for
here
you
in
to
the
message,
comments.
yeah, if they ask for you to message, then go ahead and message. But most people are going to prefer that you do not message. Leave your link, move along, and hopefully you get contacted at some point.
Yep. And keep in mind that a lot of times when someone makes a post requesting a second shooter, we make the post and then leave it. Like Scott said, we make the post and we leave it. We don't even check it until like maybe a day or two later because we're just waiting for all of the responses. So I know that it can be really, oh gosh, it's hard because you see that job there and you really want it. And, you have that gumption to really go get them and make sure that you're one of the top people in the post. It really doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter whether you were the first person to post or the 10th person to post. We're going to scan through all of them that are available. And like I said, most of the time, unless it's an emergency situation where somebody backed out the same day, we're gonna scan through everything. And whether you were first or last, the biggest part, like Scott said, is if you're not following the directions of the post and you were just trying to be first and you're not following what the post actually indicated, you're immediately disqualifying yourself. And, Scott said he even has a banned list. So you don't want to be on the banned list. So,
no. And we don't want to have to put people on the ban list. But again, if you are constantly commenting and filling up my notifications or blowing up my messages, and I did not ask you to do that, well, then that's going to cause an issue eventually. So just keep all of that in mind.
I'm gonna Ahmed said here, Scott said at the beginning, if you have good reviews or a reference, but if you're purely starting newbie like me, how do you get your first opportunities to start building the references and portfolio? And we are going to dive into that with some other options. So Facebook may not be the best place to go when you're a very, very new photographer. So I will be honest, most of the times, more experienced photographers like myself or Scott or Samantha, or, some people who've been around for a while, you need the second shooter. So you post the post in Facebook because you need to do it, you're not having trouble finding somebody. We're looking for someone who is about the same experience level as we are. And this is something that's really hard to swallow for a lot of people. And I think we'll get into that maybe in a little bit, but why not? Let's just dive into it now. What do you think, Scott? Let's
Sure.
just do it.
I was going to say, one of my points was that you have to be well aware of where you are when it comes to your experience, when it comes to your gear, when it comes to your work. Like Megan said, we are both generally more experienced full-time photographers. We are going to be looking for more experienced photographers in return. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some jobs every now and then where we will look for someone, be like, you know what, all right, this couple did not book a second, but I want to bring along somebody who maybe could do some light shooting here and there. Like some of us will post those up every now and then, and that might be your opportunity to break into it there. But you have to realize if we're posting up, hey, we're looking for the person on this main date on this type of job, we're looking for these qualifications, and you haven't had any experience there, or you've only done just a few weddings, you're probably not going to get chosen for something like that there. And one of the big things I see with people's portfolios, by the way, websites are a whole different thing we could talk about on another day, but you cannot say the excuse of I haven't updated my website, I don't have a website. Can't do it. You have to be up to date. You have to have something to show. I'll talk about another option in just a little bit. However, you need to be on top of things and be presenting your best work. But one of the things I see so often is people will share an entire, say like, here's my portfolio. And I can tell it's all 1 or 2 shoots. It's a million photos from those.
Yeah.
Well, that very clearly indicates that like you're starting out and there's nothing wrong with that. But don't show me 100 photos all from 1 or 2 shoots, because that very clearly tells me you're just starting out and you're applying for a job that's probably a little bit above your experience level at that point.
On the same note of portfolio, I'd like to also make a note of one of my pet peeves. A lot of times I will get a portfolio showing me, applying for a second photographer job, and the portfolio is all couples portraits, maybe even from a styled shoot or something like that. But in all honesty, I don't care whether you can pose a couple, because I do that on the wedding day. That's my job. I take the straight on, perfectly cropped, everyone in frame, the whole wedding party looking at the camera. I don't really care whether you can get that shot. I need a creative alternate photo. I need something that adds value to my client's gallery. I need the secondary angle. I need the creative shot. I need the shot through the trees, or like, of the bouquet as they're holding it, a close up, or, they had a dog. I want a close up of the dog's face instead of, the entire thing. I'm already getting the entire shot of, the straight on shot. I need you to get the alternate angles. And I also need to know that you can do the job that the second shooter typically does, which is the secondary, the other wedding party. So I need to make sure that you can shoot a wedding party, particularly the guys. And I hate to use the language of the guys and the girls, because it could be 2 groups of guys or 2 groups of girls, or, some girls in the guys group, all the things. But just customarily, you're going to be shooting a group of guys in suits and the groom. So I need to see groom's shots. I need to see groomsmen shots. I need to see that you can shoot the reception details, because on a traditional timeline, you have to do that because I'm over here doing these things. I want to make sure that you can shoot with flash during the reception. So show me some reception dancing shots, show me some, all the things. You need to showcase the second shooter's job in your portfolio, not the lead shooter's job. So rant over.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that was literally my next point. And
sorry.
That was perfect. That's exactly to a T what I was going to say is you have to share what people are looking for when they're going to hire a second, which is they want to see, can you handle the groom or the other person's side? Can you handle the group part? Can you do reception details? Can you cover those things? I don't care that you can shoot all these great portraits. That's wonderful. You're probably not going to be doing a whole lot of that on the day. And that's not to say, sure, every now and then I'll use my seconds portraits, and it all depends on how you work. However, we have to remember what you're there for. You're there to serve the main photographer, and you're trying to demonstrate your skills in these areas that they will not be able to cover. So therefore, you have to share that stuff. The main photographer should not have to reach out to you and say, hey, could I see a gallery of these things? Because I didn't see any, when you were sharing your link with me. So keep that in mind whenever you're putting together a gallery, your website. Like, you need to be able to show these things off, because that is what's going to get you hired.
Mm-hmm. So maybe we can give at this point, because I think a lot of people signed up here, it's a class or a talk here today for newer photographers. And typically speaking, newer photographers aren't going to have a portfolio yet. They don't have the shots that we're talking about, even though, that's what we're looking for. How does one go about building their portfolio for this very specific purpose?
There's a lot of ways. There's so many ways to go about doing this. Obviously, number one is friends and family, doing free shoots with them just to get some practice. And then from there, obviously, you could advertise it out to the public to do, a free shoot or a very discounted shoot or something like that. Like, that is how you have to kind of hit the ground running. You have to get out there. You got to do stuff for free or very discounted in order to kind of prove that you can deliver on what you're hoping to deliver on. And then outside of that, the next best way, in my opinion, to really get in and start working with people that you are looking up to is to either assist or even just shadow the photographers that you want to work with there. So like Megan and I were talking right before all you guys hopped on here, where we both had people reach out through like cold emails where like people found us online. They were like, hey, I like your work. And they emailed us and said, like, I want to get into this and I would love to find a way to work with you, however that is. Like, I'll do it for free, I'll do it for cheap, like just trying anything they can to get through that front door. And
Mhm.
Megan and I both said we've both been very surprised at just how well that worked out for both of us in that case. And then eventually those people kind of work their way up. Like, okay, you turn from a shadow into an assistant, then into a second, and the sky's the limit from there. So you really have to put yourself out there. And yes, you might have to work a few things for free or very cheaply in order to work your way in. But you also have to realize that the payoff in the long run is going to be so much more than that. And also, like, people pay just to try to follow one of us around at a wedding. Like, so if we even let somebody do that for free, like that's a huge, huge value to get to witness and see all that, ask questions about it. So these are things to kind of think about there. You want to elaborate on any of that, Megan?
I just want to note that last year in particular, I had a really hard time with some of the assistants that I was having come, not shadows, but assistants. So they were being paid to come and assist. And they were coming mostly to gain experience, of course. And, they were there to carry the bags and do the things and run this here and run that there. And it was a lot of work to, well, I guess what I want to say is that initial wedding, the first one, is a lot of work for us to kind of train you to be a good assistant for us. So, we're actually giving more direction and it's almost more work than it is that you're helping us for the first one. So we're kind of expending all of our energy and working extra hard to train you up on that first one. And then I had it happen 3 times last year that they then basically said afterwards, well, I think I got everything I really wanted. So I'm just going to take myself off the schedule for the rest of the year.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
So, as you can imagine, of course, I said, I understand, totally fine. But am I ever going to have that person back again ever for anything, even second shooting or anything like that? What do you think, Scott?
Definitely no. They're going on the ban list for sure.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say like I like have a hard time with like a ban list, but yeah, I mean I'm just not going to be likely to hire you back for anything else or do anything else or go out of my way to help you any further because it felt like I was used in that situation because I gave everything my all, I took that extra time on the wedding to be there to help support you and train you up in this situation so you can be a good assistant. And then just to be like, yeah, I got everything I wanted. So bye. It was almost hurtful.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Uh,
You did touch on pricing. And I think
mhm.
this is as good as time as ever. And, we've only gotten into Facebook groups here and touched on cold emails. But we have some more ways to get seen by other photographers, and we're going to dive into those here in a second. But why don't we just knock
Those are the
out
best ones
pricing?
coming up, by the way. We
Yeah.
promise. We're saving the best for last year.
Yeah, we're kind of
Um,
like working up from the least effective ways to get seen and get hired to the best effective ways, the most effective ways to get hired as a second shooter. So the best is yet to come, but let's just touch on pricing right now because we talked a lot about being a good fit for the photographer and making sure that you are meeting their needs as quickly and easily as possible. Talk to us about pricing. How do you price yourself for this? So, it's a free market. I know you can charge whatever you want to, but at the same time, there's going to be some boundaries there. So let's hear about that.
yeah. So I've seen a lot of the new people that are like, why am I not getting hired? And they're advertising themselves as a second who's very, very early on, who maybe only 1 or 2 weddings, and they're looking to get paid, 60, 70, $100 an hour. It's like, oh, well, I can tell you why you're not getting hired there. So some kind of basics working up from least to the highest here. So again, the first way to start out is just to be an assistant. And if you literally have never done it before, you might get paid as little as $15 an hour, which, let's be real, it's still not completely awful by any means for getting the experience and getting some money on there as well. Like, for example, for me, for assistants that have actually had some experience, I pay $25 an hour. And it can even go up a little bit from there if you work with me on a regular basis. And I know I can rely on you and maybe even do a little bit of light shooting. So you're looking at anywhere from $15 to $35 an hour, depending on who you work with, your amount of experience, how long you've been doing it, and all of those different factors there. But generally, you're going to be looking around the $20 to $30 range, I think is pretty safe to say for most assistants there. So keep in mind, like that's not bad pay for, if you do a 10-hour day, you're looking at a few $100 there for where you don't have to go home and edit or do anything like that. And you also get to kind of see how that photographer works. So from there, being a second photographer, then this is where we can see some really wide ranges because it really depends on, again, the work you do, the gear you have, experience, all of that stuff right there. So for example, for myself, I charge $70 an hour to second shoot for somebody. That's because I've done nearly 500 weddings now. I have all the gear, I'm going to show up and kill it for you there.
And you can shoot for different styles too. So, you
Right.
have the capability of shooting for a light and airy photographer if you need to. You can switch it up if you need to because you have that experience.
Yeah. Now, most people are going to fall around that $50 range. That's pretty much, I think, kind of the agreed upon industry standard for a very long time where you have the appropriate gear, you have some experience, and you can do a decent overall job where you can deliver some photos that will be usable for the photographer. Now, if you go any less than that, well, you might just be starting out looking to get into it. And so therefore, you might need to go as low as $30 an hour or $40 an hour, depending on where you're at. I always tell people, if you are just starting out and you really want to get in with some people, that $30 to $40 range is going to be a great way for somebody to maybe take a chance on you at some point. I know that early on, that's what I did. I made my rates a little bit lower and it got me the first few jobs. And then from there, I was able to quickly raise it from there. So you have to just keep in mind, if you're just starting out, you can't put it up at that $50 range. You can't go 70 because that's more reserved more for those people who have that experience as well. And speaking of gear, I know that was a question that a few people had asked. What do you really need to be considered for jobs? And granted, a lot of this is kind of mine, but I think it's kind of a general as well. So you're going to need 2 full frame cameras. And the reason why is 2. Oops, go ahead, Megan.
I didn't want to just interrupt you. Sorry.
Sure.
I want to preface this by saying that I think the gear that you're about to give us is like for an experienced photographer, if you want to shoot for an experienced photographer, generally speaking. But you're always going to be able to maybe find somebody who's also starting out, who, got that wedding from Aunt Joe or, cousin, this person's getting married and you've been, hey, you have a camera and do you want to shoot the wedding? Someone in that situation might be more willing to take on somebody who has a crop sensor camera or something like that. So just keep that in mind that we're talking specifically about an experienced full-time photographer's needs here. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a great part. I mean, I know not everybody has the money or, ability to go out and purchase all of these right now. And I'm not saying you should. It's not like you go out and buy the gear and all of a sudden you're going to get hired by all these people. It's not going to happen. However, if you are looking to get hired by like Megan, myself, the bigger names that you are trying to get into, there are some basic requirements for we don't need the latest and greatest, but you do need to kind of have a certain minimum in order to be able to produce the results that we're looking for. So 2 full frame cameras. The reason why 2, because if one fails, you have another. Really, ideally, you'd have 3. Granted, that's something that can come down the road, but basically, I want you to be able to have a backup camera just in case. Then you're going to need a wide lens and you're going to need to have a telephoto lens. So the wide could be anywhere from 24 to 35, maybe somewhere in that range. You could go even wider if you need to, but generally somewhere around there is good. And then a telephoto, again, something maybe 70, 85, longer than that there. So for example, you could, if you're a prime shooter, you could have a 35 and 85. That could work right there. Or if you're a Zoom fan, you could do like a 24 to 70 and 70 to 200 right there. So you need to have a little versatility with your lenses there and have something that can give you both the wide shots and the tighter shots. And the other lenses are just kind of a bonus based on your style and then meeting what the photographer needs there. So for me, I'd like to go a little bit wider. So I need somebody who can also go at least a 24. Megan?
So, one of the main reasons why you really need to have a more telephoto lens when you're second shooting is because you're usually stepped back from the situation. The main lead shooter is the one that's in there a little closer, giving the direction, and you need to be able to shoot tight shots from a little further back so that you're not in the way. When I was starting out and I, had brought that one person along that, offered to come for free, I noticed she almost got in the way sometimes because she'd be trying to go in to do what I needed her to do, to take that really close up, bouquet shot. And she was doing what I wanted her to do, but she had to get in my way to do it. And that's a big no-no. It's a big no-no. You don't want to walk in front of the lead shooter when you're trying to get those secondary angles.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing would be is you need to have some type of flash of some sort. And again, this is going to vary widely depending on who you work with. If you are in pretty much all white tents and low ceilings and easy things like that, well, then you can just bounce flash all night and you will be more than fine. Now, it really depends on who you want to work with, but most kind of people at Megan and I at our level, you're going to need probably more than one flash. You're probably going to need 2 or 3, just it kind of depends on their working style. The reason why is, let's say for me, I require 3. I need 1 on camera and I need 2 off. So that way you can match my style. Some people are okay with just 1 on camera. Some people want 1 off, 1 on. It really depends, but you're going to need to have more than likely a few. Again, if you're just starting off, if you just have 1, it might be okay. It's all going to depend on who you're trying to work with, your style, and matching their style there. And then also, again, depending on style, would be needing to have things like grids and gels. So for people who work with me, you got to have grids, you got to have gels and all that stuff. If you're working with Megan, you don't need to have those things. So again, it really comes down to who are you trying to target and really work with in the end there. So anything to add on gear, Megan?
Nope. I think you hit it all. Well done.
Cool. All right. So I guess up next would be an effective way would be Shoot With Me. If you haven't heard of them, I might be a little biased. They're some good friends of mine. Mike and Nathan created Shoot With Me, which is a platform meant for hiring or finding jobs in the photography industry, mainly aimed at weddings, but I know they're kind of expanding that as well a little bit. And basically, it's kind of like taking all the Facebook posts and putting it into a really nice, easy to use platform that either you can find help. So like for me, I'm on there posting jobs, finding my assistants and finding my seconds. So when people are just like, how do I find jobs that, you're looking to hire for? You're not going to find them on Facebook. I hate to say it, you're not. And I know some people are like, oh, it's a gatekeeper thing. It's like, no, it's very easy for me to do it because on there, the idea is I make a post on there and it's not like a Facebook post. I like make a job and then I can see everyone who is available for that date, what their rate is, the gear they have, their portfolio. I can see it all within a minute's notice. And guys, do you realize the advantage of that for someone like myself, who I just hired all of my assistants in seconds for all 20 of my weddings this year? All of that was done on the platform. I think I had finished it all within an hour. So every single person I could screen, see reviews, see every little thing that I need to about them in order to make a decision. I can't do that on Facebook. And that's why a lot of us are moving over to Shoot With Me and using it on a regular basis because it makes that decision-making process that much easier on there.
What I think is the coolest part is that you can specifically filter what you're seeing. So instead of just seeing everybody who is available on that date, you can filter. I want someone with 2 camera slots. I want someone who has a full frame camera. I want someone who has 3 flashes, and it will filter to exactly what you need. So that is just so cool.
Yeah. It's as customizable as you really want it to be. And that's why so many people are on there. I mean, I can tell you right now, literally, I think pretty sure they're well over 10,000 jobs that have been booked on there. I mean, like we're talking a lot. So by the way, I'm going to drop my own little affiliate link for Shoot With Me in the chat there to sign up. Now, here's the bonus for you guys tuning in today. I messaged them and said, how can you guys help us out with people who are a little bit newer trying to get hired? So first off, I want to say you do not pay on Shoot With Me until you book your first job. So that's something I really said, like, kudos, guys. That's something that's needed. So literally, you get your first job that will pay for the whole first year right then and there. And then anything from there is gravy for you. So the people that Shoot With Me were kind enough to give you guys a free profile audit. So all you have to do is message the support. They have a little chat button in the bottom there. And all you have to say is say that Scott sent me for my free profile audit. Okay, that's all you got to say there. So normally they charge $200 for this. And I know it might seem crazy, but both Mike and Nathan have operated their own studios. They have associates. Between the two of them, they have thousands of weddings, thousands. They know exactly what to look for and what people need to do in their profile in order for it to be successful. And
So
heck,
what are
even
some, what
I
are some of
chatted
the
with
types of
them.
things that they will like? What are some of the types of things that they will critique there and during the audit?
Yeah. So, I mean, on your profile, you have a bunch of different things. Like you can put your own little copy in there. You can have your portfolio in there. You're going to have your gear. There's so many different things that you can have in there. In fact, let's see, can I share my screen here by chance?
I think you can.
Let me see.
It's
Nope,
the
I can't.
green. I can. Bummer.
Well, anyways, here, let's see if I'll drop my own little link in the chat. That way you guys can see what mine looks like on there.
There you go.
But basically, like, you can control every little piece of it. And so there's lots of things to consider on there. So the one thing I see, like I said before, is having a curated portfolio. So having enough on there, but also not too much. I came across some the other day where like they had 100 images in there, like maxed out. I don't have time to look through all that. I just want to get a good picture of what you can do, and I'm good. They also will go through, make sure that you're displaying your gear, that you have the right kind of things tagged on your profile. So like Megan said, you can put on there that you have dual camera slots, that you know how to do off-camera flash. All of these different things in there are going to be really helpful in ensuring that you get hired, because these are all different things that you can do to ensure that people are finding you on the platform. So it's been a total game changer for me. And I'm not just saying that, it really has been. It's where I do all of my hiring now. So again, if you want to be found by a lot of the working professionals, a lot of us, I hate to say it, we're not in the Facebook groups all that much unless we're running them. Like Megan and I, that's why we're in this group here. However, you're not going to find us generally posting up these second shooting opportunities because, number one, we're on Shoot With Me. And number two is we have our own kind of networks already built, which I think is the perfect leeway into the last point, which is networking. Megan, you want to kick off this one?
All right. So networking is probably my favorite way to meet potential second shooters, just because for me, I think that the ability to sit in front of somebody face to face and look into their eyes and talk to them about their experience and talk to them about their gear, you really get a feel for where they're at experience wise, and you can actually just ask the questions. And for me, my brand in particular is so heavy on my bubbly personality and just my over the top, love of my clients and things like that. For me to meet somebody else and know that they're going to be a good fit for that level of in your facedness, I guess you want to say, is really powerful for me. So early on, I hired a lot of my first second shooters based on meeting together at meetups. So we would just, in a Facebook group, like, hey, who wants to meet for coffee at Starbucks and, get to know each other. And a couple of us would meet up, and it's like super awkward at first because you're like, hi, I'm Megan. And, but you eventually get to talking, and then you start talking about your experience, and you get to know each other at a little bit of a deeper level than even how you can in Shoot With Me. Shoot With Me is amazing in that you just have everything at your fingertips. But if you have the ability to meet somebody in person, and then say, you know what, I think we're a really good fit. And like, I scroll their Instagram afterwards or check their website out afterwards. I'm like, well, their work is really top notch too. I think that I would love to work with this person. That can be incredibly powerful. The main second shooter that I use most frequently, Sandy, that was how we met. The very first time we both showed up at a meetup. I was pregnant with my daughter, Rita, literally like this big. I was due that week and I was like, I'm going to try, guys. If I don't show up, I'm having a baby. And I remember waddling into the Starbucks and just being like, oh, what kind of a person am I coming to a meetup like this? But we met then, and she came along with me to an engagement session for free, and just second shot the engagement session, which I don't need someone to second shoot an engagement session, but it was a great way for me to see her work and actually see what she could do for me second shooting wise. And we got to talk in the car the whole way there and the whole way back. And we really got to know each other really well. And to this day, she is, my preferred second shooter 100% of the time. So it can be really valuable. Now, it's not just meetups, which we do offer at Lancaster Photography School. We do it once a month in Lancaster at the school's location at the Candy Factory in Lancaster City. We do meetups that are free. So please come. We would love to meet you there. I bring pizza. It's lots of fun. But going to other classes. So learning opportunities are great ways to meet other photographers that are at the same level as you. Because if you're all showing up to a class together, you're all at the stage where you're learning that information at the same time. So going to a class is an incredible way to meet other people. And that's one of my favorite parts of teaching at Lancaster Photography School is watching these connections happen. In particular, Scott actually teaches a couple classes for Lancaster Photography School, and we love that he does because like we've talked about, I teach more of my light and airy style. So it's fun to have Scott come in and teach flash, which is really cool. And he taught a flash class a few months ago that was just incredible. We had 20 photographers there, and the connections that were made at that event were just amazing. Go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
In fact, so one of the attendees from my last workshop, I just hired her to run the photo booth at an event I have this coming weekend. So like, yeah, I give preference to people that I have networked with and met in real life. And so like, this is her chance to show me what she can do as an assistant. And then I'll probably try her out a few more times as that. And then if she can show me she can start shooting, okay, then I'll move her right up from there. So again, this goes right along with what Megan's saying is when you attend these classes, workshops, meetups, and all of that stuff, it gets you in front and it lets us see like, okay, I can tolerate you. Great. I like you. I like dealing with you. And therefore, I'm willing to bring you on and try you out for a job or two then. And then from there, it can really take off to anywhere there. Now, one thing I do want to very clarify is the big no-no to do with networking. And that is, do not ask to grab a coffee with one of us. Do please, whatever you do not ask any photographer to pick their brain, to go grab a coffee, to go hang out. It's an immediate no. The reason why is not because we're mean. It's because like Megan and I, we both have children, we have families, our time, and I hate to say it, but like it's really, really valuable. It's not saying that yours isn't, but like to get time to sit down with us like that, like I charge to meet with me per hour for coaching and mentoring, just like Megan does. If you really want to pick our brain on something, well, either you got to attend a class, you got to pay to get into the class, but then you get access to us, or you got to pay for mentoring or coaching in some way. And honestly, the classes and the meetups and all of that, that's a way to actually kind of get some cheaper or even free access to us that you're just not going to get otherwise. So
yeah. And a really cool thing that we decided to offer for Scott's next flash class, which I'll drop in the comments here, because it's a really cool opportunity. And we don't have classes by Scott, all the time. So getting into a class at Lancaster Photography School with Scott is pretty incredible. But we decided to not only extend it an hour, but we're actually going to head out and have dinner afterwards with all of the attendees. So we're having it at a real wedding venue in Atglen, Pennsylvania, which is the Barn at Stony Brook. And then we're going to go right down the street is Victory Brewing. So after the event, we're all going out to, grab a drink and grab some dinner together. And that's your opportunity then to just have us to chat with and ask any questions and get to know us a little bit better. And that's our chance to get to know you a little bit better too. So I would highly encourage you to come to something like that, where, we're providing this social opportunity for you afterwards too, which is really cool. So, you'd already dropped it in the comments.
I already
You're
got
the
you.
best.
But yeah, exactly. That's it. So like, as I always tell people, I'm like, even if this isn't maybe the perfect fit for you, the small price you pay to get access to kind of pick our brains in a way, like this is it right here. You're looking at less than $200 to get access to me for hours and hours on end. Ask me those questions that you have there. And like, let's be real. I don't know about you guys, but every time I pay for coaching, mentoring, take a class or something, like the small fee I pay comes back so much each and every time.
Oh yeah,
So like,
absolutely.
for example, like the attendee from my last workshop, she will now be making, I think, she'll be making more than double what she paid for the workshop on this next job that I just hired her for.
Absolutely.
Right then and there, paid for her and then some. And then this has now opened her up to more opportunities with me in the future, where she could potentially earn thousands of dollars a year from me. So like, this is huge stuff that like, I want always people to think about the bigger picture of these relationships. You cannot look at it as a one-off thing. If you really work hard and do the right networking with the right people, it can set you up for exponential, benefits for yourself in the future.
Absolutely. I have never engaged in any kind of education or anything that I've done for my business that didn't pay off in the end, like fivefold, almost immediately afterwards. It's always a good idea to get out there and network, whether it's by taking a class or going to a meetup or whatever. I also linked, I'm teaching a natural light workshop the week before Scott's class. So if you're interested,
that timing's too perfect.
Right? So it'll be natural light and then flash the next week. So it'll be a really fun month. It just so happened that one of my events that I was shooting in Texas got canceled. So wow for that, but yay for adding a workshop. So we're really excited to have that much to offer in the month of March before our crazy shooting schedules start.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good thing to mention too. Keep in mind, if you're newer, you might not be crazy busy during the season, but once our shooting seasons start in about April is usually when it starts getting really crazy. We're pretty unavailable for like extra time and DMs and extra emails and things like that. It gets really hard for us to respond back between April and the end of October and into November a little bit. Over the winter is always the best time to try to get one of us to really ask the questions and do the things. It's when the workshops happen. So I know a lot of people like to hibernate over the winter and just like, oh, well, when it gets nicer, I'll get out there. We're not going to be able to have as much available once we start our regular shooting schedule, because we're all, real professionals who have businesses that we're running regularly. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. As far as scheduling goes, like I said, I've already hired all my help for the year. Like, guys, we're in February. I got everybody I need for the year. It's done. So truthfully, it depends on everybody. Everybody handles this a little bit differently, but I will say, come January usually is when a lot of the full timers like myself, like that's when I'm going, okay, here's my schedule for next year. Let me start reaching out to the people I really want, because the people I really want, their schedules are filling up quickly as well. So I want to be the first to grab them and all of that. Then from there, I'm kind of leaving those other ones where maybe I don't need as strong of a second, or I don't need quite as much help. I'll leave those open to a little bit more in the last minute type stuff. Now, of course, emergencies happen and all those other things too. So you just got to keep in mind is you got to be quick and be available and ready to go. One of the best tips I can give you is have your gear charged and ready to go and your bag packed every weekend. If you don't have a job, have that bag packed and ready to go. and be scouring the Facebook groups and Shoot With Me and making sure that you're available and kind of looking for these things, because these jobs do happen. Things happen. And, if you can swipe in at the last minute and save the day, again, it's a huge, huge thing that will get you so many points. That word of mouth spreads, and it's a whole chain reaction from there.
Yeah, absolutely. One more thing that I want to note before we wrap up here is a big pet peeve of mine. Don't ever back out of a wedding that you have signed up for. Now, we all understand that things happen, deaths in the family, big time things, I'm telling you, big things that are just, you have no control over. Early on, I had someone sign up for maybe like 4 weddings in the year. And then she contacted me and said that there was a Penn State football game happening for one of the weddings. And she's like, I think I'm just going to spend the day with my husband, and said, I'm so sorry. And I just said, I understand. Okay, fine. But I am going to take you off of all of the weddings for the year. At that point, I feel like a jerk, but at the same time, I need to know that I can rely on the people who sign up for my weddings. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull you off of all of them then. And I know it probably was a little harsh, but if a Penn State football game is more important to you than second shooting the wedding, then I'm going to find somebody who it is more important to. So
yeah, we have one chance. This is one day. There's one window for this to happen, and we cannot miss it. I have missed one wedding in all of my years, and that's because I had double hernia surgery and could not walk. But literally, I have done weddings in boots. I had a freaking eye patch for a wedding. Like, you name it, I am going to be there. And, as seconds and assistants, like, yes, I hate to say it, you're not quite as important. However, if you sign up and commit to a day, we are expecting you to be there. Now, again, if something comes up and there's plenty of notice, that can be a different story. So, for example, if somebody reaches out to me and it's 4 months out and they said something came up, would it be possible for me to find a replacement, for this date? And then I will probably contemplate and say, sure, I can probably find somebody. And if I can, I'll let you off the hook. But if I can't, I'm still going to need you to fulfill that date.
yes.
So just keep that in mind, is like, we are expecting you to be there. And if you bail, I hate to say it, like, we are all going to talk about that. I had this past year, I had 2 people bail on me, and come to find out they had bailed on other people as well. They have not gotten a single job from any of us since then. And I know, because they keep posting in all the groups like, hey, I'm looking to work for people.
And that might seem harsh, but it's not, because we all need to know who the people are that we can trust and rely on. So, one of the biggest, other than being skilled and having all the gear and being nice, the next biggest thing is being reliable is huge. You have to be reliable as a second shooter. So,
yeah, no more to say there. That's spot on.
all right, guys, we won't take up any more of your day. Thank you so much for coming. We will definitely be, I'll get this up as a replay and email it to everybody who either showed up or signed up. I will probably drop it in the Facebook group eventually too. I don't know if Scott will drop it in his Facebook group, but along or in the replay, I'll link all the things that we talked about and all of Scott's stuff, all of my stuff, where you can find us, and definitely Scott's Shoot With Me link, because if you're not on Shoot With Me, you're kind of behind the times at this point. Like, it's just, you need to be on Shoot With Me at this point. That's all there is to it. It's the most amazing marketplace out there right now. And we have the incredible leg up on the rest of the country, because it is a nationwide it's a nationwide website marketplace. But since Mike and Nathan are in Philadelphia, their biggest network is here in Pennsylvania. So we have more people to choose from. There's more leads looking for, there's just more happening in our area than anywhere else in the nation. So we really do have a leg up on the whole Shoot With Me thing. So you need to be on Shoot With Me. Make sure you sign up. Again, like Scott said, it is free until you book your first job. And like he said, that will pay for itself right there and then with your first job, most likely. So you really need to get on there. So if you're not on Shoot With Me, go do it. And then also do not forget to sign up for their free worth $200 audit. Just because you're here today or because, you've watched this, you have access to this worth $200. They will go through and help you go through your whole profile and make sure that it's going to speak to people. So anything to close on, Scott?
Oh, no, that's perfect. I hope this was super helpful for all of you. Again, if you want to continue this conversation, you can post in the Facebook groups, and ask about this so we can talk about a little bit more there. But I think we covered hopefully all the basics there. And I hate to say it, but now begins the tough part. This is the easy part. This is the easy part, is educating yourself. We can all do this. The tough part is to actually do the work, invest, believe, put in the work, and make it happen. And here's the thing, guys, it's not going to happen overnight. And sometimes some sacrifices will have to be made. I will tell you, the very first second shooting job I did it for free. Then the next one was an emergency where somebody needed a second shooter in Williamsport. It's 2.5 hours away each way from me. I found out 48 hours in advance. I was a full-time teacher at the time. And I was like, cool, packed up my bags, ran out the door from teaching, drove out there, made it happen. Like, these are the things and opportunities when they present themselves. You got to look and say, all right, this is my opportunity to make it happen. And from there, the rest was history. So this could be the same case for you, and it might not be, but don't let yourself get down about it. It does take time, takes hard work, but I truly believe if you want it bad enough and you put in the time, you'll get there.
Yep. You got to hustle, guys. You really got to hustle. Next up in our lineup of free talks like this one with Scott, we have one of the second shooters that I work with pretty regularly. Samantha Reese is of Samantha Jean Photography.
Hey,
We're doing she's here today. So that's really cool. We're going to have Samantha on, and she and I are going to get into the actual role on the wedding day between the lead photographer and the second photographer. So we're going to really talk about that piece of it, of when you actually get that job, what to do when you arrive to the wedding. So that's a huge piece too. So basically, once you get the job, how to get another one from the same person. So, and how to keep that ball rolling. So I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks again for showing up today. And thanks for, investing in yourself with time today. Even though this was a free talk, it still took an hour of your time. And I really want to applaud you there for doing that. And I hope to see you at the next one. You guys have a great day. Bye.